So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in this session of the Connected Fleets Conference. Today with me is Adam Longenecker. He is the Strategic Sourcing Lead EMEA at ZimmerBiomet. Now, how does a respected and forward-looking company like ZimmerBiomet look at connected technology and the developments of connected fleet for the efficiency of its mobility operations? That is what Adam is going to unravel first in the presentation, and afterwards he will answer the questions that you have for him. You can submit your questions via the chat function, and at the end of Adam's presentation, I'm sure that we will have some time for some interesting Q&A together with Adam. Adam, thank you very much for joining the conference. I hope that you are doing well.
Yes, very well, thank you.
Okay, we already see the first slide of your presentation on the screen. This is great. So you can start doing your presentation. I will mute myself and also shut down my camera so that full attention is for you. And as mentioned, you can first do the presentation and afterwards we will take some questions from the audience. Okay?
No, sure, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, no, sure. So in this case, yeah, welcome to the Connected Fleets Conference. I think many of my colleagues today might have presented on connected vehicles or telematics, and I would like to talk to you today about connecting to the drivers and affecting the driver behavior. So I'll just introduce myself. Hi, my name is Adam Longenecker. I'm a strategic sourcing lead for fleet management, fleet category, among some others, at ZimmerBiomet. I've been there for 2 years at ZimmerBiomet, but my overall experience in fleet management is 10 years. I was with a third-party fleet management company for 4 years, and then the last 6 years I've been in fleet procurement, and this is my latest role. And so what I would like to do today is first give you an idea about ZimmerBiomet. This might be a new company that you might not be familiar with, and then also talk about our overall fleet strategy and how driver engagement connects to that. So ZimmerBiomet is a global medtech leader in musculoskeletal healthcare, and we focus on maximizing mobility and improving quality of life for our patients. And so what does that mean? Well, we manufacture and market replacement knees and hips. We're manufacturing in more than 25 countries, and our sales is in more than 100 countries around the world, so truly global. My focus is on Europe, and mainly that's where our vehicle fleet is. Just to give you an idea of our fleet baseline and our fleet strategy and how today's topic connects to that, I'll give you an overview here. So we have over 1,100 vehicles in European area. This is in over 25 countries, but lots of different local sites. So over 40 different company sites. What's fairly typical is that we're using full service lease. We replace over roughly 48 months, and our annual driven contracted kilometers are fairly typical. I think what is a little bit different for me coming into ZimmerBiomet is that nearly 70% of our fleet are premium brands, and it's almost entirely a benefit fleet. I was the first to address fleet management centrally at ZimmerBiomet, so some of the policies were a little bit outdated, fairly traditional, focused on sedans and station wagons, and you can see here 87% diesel. So this was part of our strategy to modernize this. And because it's a benefit fleet, the policy is governed entirely by compensation and benefit from HR. And so my role is as a fleet management consultant internally in that sense. So what I would like to talk to you today is to show you how our company strategy for ZimmerBiomet distills down into our fleet strategy and then even a driver engagement strategy. And so I'll start with some of the strategic pillars, which are fairly corporate, best and preferred place to work for our employees, to be a trusted partner internally and externally, and as well to be a top quartile performer. And so these strategic pillars translate into the expectations of my line management going up to the C-suite internally. So we wanted to make sure that we're offering the right vehicles to our drivers, that it's a competitive benefits package. As well, we wanted to focus on fleet management best practices. It was hard to develop know-how over so many different sites. We wanted to harmonize our supplier mix and our vendors, and then of course deliver on cost savings as part of being competitive. And so here in the red points, I added a couple requirements here to what is the typical supply strategy. So let's engage with our drivers and also focus on safety. And we need to focus on policy compliance and awareness as well. So here, those requirements translated into our strategy. So lots of legacy leasing companies. So we consolidated down to 2. Lots of fragmented brands. So we restricted our brand policy down to 1 premium OEM and 2 generalist brands. And then our outdated policy reference vehicle list by the job bands, we optimized this according to a benchmark. But all of these topics, what leasing companies were using, what brands and what vehicle configurations we're giving, these are all, say, supply-based contractual costs. So these are the fairly typical procurement targets. What I would like to talk to you today about is the demand topics. So what are the variable costs? What's driven by driver behavior? And so here are points 4 and 5. So that's policy compliance, aware of the policy, but then also what are the driver risks from driver behavior, driver safety? And so here our strategy was to somehow engage with our drivers. So we wanted to have a third-party platform in order to do this. So here we had to distill this further down. Okay, what is our driver engagement strategy for this platform? So these first points are the internal project requirements. And here I'm just walking you through what did the project steps look like. So number 1, I'm responsible for more than just car fleet, and my line management and sourcing didn't want me to be an operational fleet manager. So I couldn't be administering a connectedness program individually with the drivers. I had to establish, say, a sponsor other than sourcing. And so this was difficult. No one in HR really wanted to take responsibility. Learning and development had their own training targets. They didn't consider this training program that I wanted to do to be in their wheelhouse. So I approached environmental health safety, which is normally focused on the manufacturing plants, but the car fleet is mainly driven by the commercial sites. So this was a challenge I had to overcome, but I was able to get our EHS lead for EMEA to be the internal sponsor. Then as well, one challenge I saw was that the list of drivers is changing every month. Some people might leave the company, some people join. And so we weren't tracking this internally. So I had to get HR to agree that the local fleet administrators will be tracking who has a company car in SAP HR. And so now we are finalizing an interface between our SAP HR and the provider that we chose, which is Alertdriving. I'll go over that in just a moment. But we are part of med tech industry, so we're really focused on regulatory compliance. This leads to a lot of trainings for all of the employees in all of the functions. So the drivers and employees at ZimmerBiomet are very familiar with our learning management system, iLearn. And so it was important that we also gain credibility for a driver connectedness program through our LMS. So we also we had to introduce this topic through our LMS. And then the safety benefits are great, but I'm in sourcing. I also wanted to create a benchmark and develop a business case. Is there a financial return on investment for this program? I needed to find the approval for an internal budget. So these are some of our internal project requirements. And then to select a supplier, I wanted a centralized program, not something fragmented, something that could be standardized and rolled out across the whole region. Naturally, it would need localized content and language if it's to be a driver training program. And then ideally, if you engage with the drivers, you want to tailor content for them. So this was also part of our requirements. And as I said before, I don't have the bandwidth to personally administer manually and assign trainings to drivers. So it needs to be managed by third-party experts. So this is the landscape of what we wanted to accomplish. And so we selected Alertdriving. Maybe some of you are familiar, but I'll review in just a moment what they're offering. But the idea is to offer an online driver training program that can reduce the vehicle collisions, the personal injuries, and then operating costs like damages or insurance premiums, and also fuel costs through safer driving. And then as well, liability exposure when it comes to insurance topics. So I'll come back to the business case that I talked about. Before we launched, what I wanted to do was to develop a baseline somehow for this driver behavior point, because I really didn't have anything before. So I approached our leasing companies where our insurance service was going through the leasing companies, and I could collect the accident rate data for 2019. And what I discovered is that for our 1,100 vehicles, or around 1,200 at that time, we had 700 insurance claims and incidents in 2019. So according to the contractual kilometers that we were driving, I discovered that we have 15.5 collisions per million kilometers. And then as well, over $300,000 in damages, deductibles that we had to pay. So I wanted to track these KPIs, the damages, the number of claims, and the collisions per million kilometers. And so Alertdriving helped us to plot out what our targets would be over the next 5 years. And so what you can see here is that we want to achieve the best in class for the industry, and we were almost double. So our target over the next 5 years is to go from 15.5 down to 8.5 collisions per million kilometer. But see, this was all disrupted, of course, by COVID-19. I had based the first baseline off of contractual kilometers, but then in 2020, our actual driven kilometers were far less. So this is a challenge that I'll overcome. I'm going to collect the actual driven kilometers, and then we will need to update what does best in class mean when there's far less vehicles on the road compared to 2019. So that is a work in progress thanks to COVID-19. But this was very helpful as a starting point. So what are we talking about? Well, it's an online driver training program. You can see from this visual, it's a type of gamification, browser-based third-party content. You use your mouse to track a vehicle, what may be a threat. There is a hazard perception module and other risk management modules where you can individually track the performance and behavior of your drivers. And then as well, we're able to send out the ZimmerBiomet company car policy as a reinforcement that we do on an annual basis to get the drivers to read through and acknowledge the company car policy. So we are tracking 6 different dimensions: awareness of other motorists, speed management, scanning, danger zones, space management, driver attitude. Each driver is given a score for each of these dimensions. And then based upon that score, Alertdriving can assign a tailored, individualized program for each driver. And then they take about 10 to 12 trainings a year. So it's about once a month. And that's the key, to drive awareness and to improve the driver behavior. It's these constant short refreshers, and that's what helps. So here are the results of our hazard perception evaluation of our drivers. And I find this amazing. You can get an intimate look into the minds of your drivers. And what, we come from this regulatory compliance mindset. So our attitude here appears to be quite good as a starting point. Scanning is maybe something that we can work on. We can add some training modules in that area. But then this gives us the starting point of how we're performing. And then we can tailor the modules accordingly for each driver. But this is an aggregate for all of our drivers. So the content is localized for each country. So that means local language. If you're in Germany, you see German roads. Same goes for Spain or Portugal or France or any of the other countries. And then our salespeople are mainly on the road. So they can also take this connectedness training through their mobile devices, on tablets, even their smartphone. And then here you can see we're also tracking compliance. So we launched this past March. And then over the first 3 months, the launch is pretty good. 92% of our drivers have already launched, but they're not taking the trainings on time. Only roughly half are completing the trainings on time, but 74% are have completed their trainings. So this shows us what we need to work on as we want to connect to the drivers. And then finally, you want to connect with your drivers. You want to build some positive feelings. And so we offer that that a family member, teenage son or daughter, or a spouse of each driver can also sign up for free. So this is a brief overview of how we've launched, what we've launched. I'm very happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Adam. Thank you for presenting your case. To the audience, if you have questions, then you can submit them via the chat. Adam, is the program already available for all the drivers in all countries?
Yes, as long as the local fleet administrator is registering the drivers in SAP HR, then I'm able to export this list to the third-party provider, and then they are sending it out to everybody. So we've launched it across the whole region. That's right.
You selected a specific supplier, in this case, Alertdriving. Why did you choose that company? Is it because of cost? Is it because of compliance? Are there any other reasons why you say, well, this for us was the right fit?
Well, when I made the overall fleet strategy, I saw that the main thrust was going after where the main spend is, which is the contractual costs. I wanted to find some way that we can connect with the drivers and deal with the driver behavior elements. I was aware of Alertdriving as a premium partner in this area. There may be some others as well, but it seemed to fit what we wanted to do. I wanted to manage something centrally. I wanted to automate it as much as possible. And it seemed to fit our strategic targets, what we needed to do.
A question from Thomas Spiegelmeier. In the future, will you use telematic data to track the driver behavior? You plan something in this direction?
Well, I'm certainly open to understand what's available on the market. The trouble is that it would require someone to really operationalize that data. And that would be a larger project. We have a sales and management fleet. They're mainly benefit cars. So my feeling tells me that this may not be a target right now. When I presented this to the EMEA president and I showed him what it was all about, I had about 15 minutes. Before I could finish, he said, approved, because he saw that we're showing goodwill to the drivers. We care about them. We're promoting a better and preferred place to work through this and through this engagement. So that's rather the focus, rather than looking to operationally control how the drivers are really using the vehicles. The way that I would see telematics might be used with more.
You also fear perhaps that when you talk about telematics internally in a company like ZimmerBiomet with a benefit fleet, let's say, that there might be more reluctance to the idea of telematics.
It's a good point, and it's true. And there are the workers' councils in some markets that require further discussion and complexity. So we want to be careful with that.
Okay. Of course, engagement is not something that is short-term. Engagement has some sustainability, some long-term period in it. How are you going to keep the momentum with this project? So if I'm taking that course as a driver, I can do it right now. But what makes me do it again in the upcoming months? And how do you see motivating your drivers to keep on doing the good behavior?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that if you want to connect with the drivers, it needs to be well administered, right? And so number one, we want to make sure that we're sending out the trainings to the correct drivers and that it doesn't become outdated. What I showed in the presentation is we are able to track the engagement with the drivers. So have they launched the program? Are they taking the trainings? When are they taking the trainings? Are they late? We have certain protocols in place so that if they are late, we don't want to be too aggressive, but then we notify the drivers, okay, hey, please log in, or you have an outstanding training since a couple weeks or a month, and then we can take a measured approach as we gently remind the drivers, hey, because it is a third-party platform. It's not, all of these trainings are going through a third-party platform. It's not everything through our iLearn. If you miss in a learning management training, then you'll get a phone call from a VP because it's medtech environment. You have to do those trainings. This is a little bit different, but we still try to push the drivers that they're compliant and that we keep it running.
In what way were you positively or negatively surprised about the first results?
Yeah, I would say when I saw the compliance ratio, I'm happy to see that 92% of our drivers have launched. Of course, whenever you want to launch something new like this, it's a training on how to drive a car, but it's done on your computer. It's not in person. So what's true is that there may be a generational difference in how people respond. I did have some feedback from drivers who weren't so thrilled. They've been driving for 40 years and they never had an accident. What do they need this for? But it's a safety training, and we're not making exceptions for a safety training. The EMEA president said it in his keynote address, which was one of the first videos, that it's mandatory for all drivers and it's for your benefit. And so, you have to have thick skin sometimes when you roll out a program to each and every driver.
The fact that you are also allowing a family member of the driver to follow the program, is that only to increase the possible motivation of the driver to step in the program? Also, I think it's meant to build positive feelings, and we want to give benefits back to our drivers. And of course, it's optional. So if they see the benefit for their family members, then it's great. We've already had some enrolling. So I feel good about that. Okay. Final question. How do you see connected technology not only supporting your fleet, but also you and your role in the future?
Wow, that's a really good question. It's very broad in the sense that connectedness, it's difficult to get data that can really be used in fleet management generally. I went through the exercise to collect our contractual data in Excel sheets from the leasing suppliers, manually harmonizing this, standardizing it, cleansing it. This is quite the exercise. So when I think about connectedness as a sourcing person, I think maybe about the insurance accident rate data, fuel card data, but this is going to be very fragmented, very local. So it's hard. It's hard to get all that data and use all that data. And I don't have the bandwidth to do it myself. So I would really want to think more about getting a third-party expert who has all of these avenues built with these third-party providers and leverage that. But of course, there's a cost to that, and there's a business case, and that may be a next step.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Adam. Thank you for unraveling already your project and also answering our questions. And we wish, of course, you and your fleet drivers a safe trip in the future. Thank you very much for having joined the Connected Fleets conference.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now you can enter the next sessions of our learning streams. It will also be the final sessions of our learning streams. So you can go to the sessions section again, where you will find a session with Geotap, and they will talk about a fleet manager's perspective. Which role do the OEMs play in the added value of fleet telematics? And in another session, you can have insights from Lactalis, a case study presentation about the challenges when setting up a connected fleet program. So go to the session section and choose the session that you prefer. Thank you.